Hello and welcome back to the Squared Circle with me, Mr. David Alorka.
And me, Jo Aujla.
That's right. We are back live and direct, not in the studio, but across your airwaves and across your video screens. Now, we got some big news going on, Joe.
Number 3, baby. The trilogy is on, baby. I'm gassed. Bivol versus Beterbiev 3. Oh my god. Now, if you guys don't know, last night, Maurizio Suleiman from the WBC, president, of course, released that tomorrow, as in today, would be purse bids for Bivol's WBC title and interim challenger, David Benavidez. Now, later, like within the next 30 minutes, it was reported that Bivol planned to vacate the WBC to be in pursuit with the trilogy against Artur Beterbiev. Then finally, Maurizio Suleiman himself came out and said that Bivol's team, his management, sent him an email, apparently a rude email, saying that they have decided to vacate the WBC. So next fight, it will be the trilogy, Bivol versus Beterbiev. What are your first thoughts, David?
My first thoughts, well, first and foremost, I don't think there's anybody on the planet more gassed than you are to see this trilogy. Obviously, you're a big-time Bivol fan, but my first thoughts is that I would have rather seen Benavidez, my brother. That's the truth. I'm telling you, bro. Like, you know what it is? Benavidez doesn't seem to be able to get a fair shake. Like, he had that period of like 2-3 years chasing Canelo. That didn't work out. That hasn't worked out. And then he's moved up to light heavyweight because of that, because Canelo's been, harboring and holding on to all of those belts down there. He's moved up to now get involved in the action that's going down in the light heavyweight scene. And it looks like, man, like Turkey's like, nah, brother. Nah, not you, cuz.
Nah. You know what's crazy? I hear what you said, because I've basically from the comments from like posts we've done on our TikToks, right? They've all said that majority have said they're happy for the trilogy, but a lot of fans have felt like the Benavidez fight was the most exciting fight for the light heavyweight division now, which I just can't believe that, to be honest, because
Why? I don't understand why you can't believe that, because we've seen this Bivol Beterbiev fight twice. We've seen it. We know it's not obviously it doesn't mean the same thing's going to happen again, because obviously both fights had different outcomes.
Yeah,
in terms of results, for some people the outcome was the same either way, but in terms of results, you had two different results, right? But we've seen these two clash each other. Now, for me, I want to see Benavidez at the top table. I wanted to see him at the top table against Canelo. That didn't happen. Now I want to see him at the top table against these light heavies. And for some reason, my man is getting blocked. I don't know if he needs to change up management. I don't know if he needs to get more friendly with HE. I don't know what he needs to do. Maybe he needs to go and see a shrink, or maybe he needs to go and see a pastor to give him some praise. Because for some reason, my man can't get a fair shake anyway.
I hear it. No, I understand it. Look, I'll give you several reasons why I think the trilogy has to happen next. One is, you mentioned the two fights. I understand that's a good, fair point, but those two fights have been one of the most exciting fights I've ever seen, right? And a lot of fans, the commentary all said, we can see this 10 times and be excited. Did we mean it? I felt that was true. So the first two fights were exciting. The third fight will be exciting again. Number two, it's 1-1 right now. Whether people thought Bivol won 2-0 or Beterbiev won 2-0, I had it for draw the first fight, the second fight Bivol personally. But on paper, it's 1-1. We need to see who is the greatest light heavyweight of our generation. And I don't want to wait. I don't want to hear arguments in 20, 30, 40 years' time that we never see the third fight. And these two fighters are neck and neck. No, I want to see who number one is. Number three, look, we saw the way Bivol responded to a loss, right? And he performed better in the second fight than the first. Can we see that against Artur Beterbiev? I want to see Beterbiev respond to his L. Now, what's the saying? A wounded animal is the most dangerous animal at the time, or something like that, right? So I feel that's going to be the same case with Beterbiev, right? We've never seen Beterbiev lose. We've seen Beterbiev come win, unify, conquer each belt. Now, what are we going to see from Artur Beterbiev in the third fight? So there's a lot of factors that we also Beterbiev's not getting younger as well. And look, what are we going to see from Artur Beterbiev in this first fight? There's so much topic points to talk about this. And look, from our post, like we put a video out that's about 15,000 views right now on TikTok here, and it all in the comments it's 50-50. Beterbiev, Bivol. So there's still interest there. Now, I understand David Benavidez is probably a very exciting fight for Bivol. I'm not denying that. I would love to see Bivol Benavidez or even Beterbiev Benavidez. I'm just saying that let's close this chapter and introduce a new storyline for these guys, because I feel like they need to get the trilogy done, you know, and finish it. Winner fights Benavidez for Undisputed, and we'll see what happens after that. Benavidez, look, he's just come into light heavyweight. He's seen. I think that's his second. I think it's his second fight in it with Gvozdyk and then Morel. Now, I understand that he deserves the Bivol fight. I get it, but you can wait one more fight, man. That's how I feel, anyway.
Yeah, listen, I hear what you're saying. It's just he's been waiting a long time for a seat at the top table, for an opportunity to prove himself. And I think you come with some very, very compelling arguments there, to be honest with you. Especially with the age that Beterbiev is at the moment as well. I think you have some very, very compelling arguments. Also, the other side of it is people are like, there's another view that's like the influence of HE on boxing. Now it might start going the other way, because you know there's a lot of boxing fans that didn't want to see rematches and trilogies, especially immediately after the other. The winner should be able to just go off and continue his vein of form. But now boxing is not in the hands of that anymore. The boxing is in the hands of whatever HE wants, basically, in essence. And if that's not the case, and we're going to talk a little bit more about HE and his influence in boxing and his continued influence in boxing, I think, in the next video. But you can see, like, you know, I think in another case or another situation, you would have had Bivol wanting to fight Benavidez, wanting to challenge himself against somebody else. And now I agree, it's fair on Beterbiev, because Beterbiev didn't have to give Bivol the rematch. So it's also fair on Beterbiev to be able to get another crack at Bivol. The only issue that I have from that perspective is it's no longer for Undisputed. Yeah, I know the belts don't really matter, because we'll know that person is the number one in the division. But at the same time, go and tell that to Beterbiev. I'm sure he'd want to be undisputed for a second time. He'd like to fight for the undisputed title for the second time. So it's a sticky one. But you know, the question I have for you, we spoke a little bit off air about this, but the question I have for you is, what does Benavidez do in the interim, in the meantime? He's been elevated to WBC champion, to full champion now. As some will call him, the email champ. You know what I'm saying? Until he fights a real live competitor, people are going to call him the email champ. Maybe they won't, because that title was reserved for Devin Haney. But what would you like to see be next?
I think with David Benavidez, at the end of the day, we know David Benavidez is a fantastic fighter. Like he's pound for pound material. Like wherever you put him, he might be creeping up pound, right? And look, it's not his fault in terms of Bivol vacate. And to be fair, he put out a really mature response. He said, "Look, this is not the ideal way. I would have liked to have been world champion, but don't worry, I will still give the fans amazing fights." And I believe him, right? So if I'm David Benavidez, I would think, look, who's the best in the light heavyweight scene, bar Beterbiev Bivol? I've beaten David Morrell, who's up there. The only person I could think of right now that would make sense is probably, you mentioned this off air as well, Callum Smith. And I'd love to see Callum Smith fight for a world title because I think, look, Callum Smith is at the twilight of his career. And I feel like, the same with, your boy Chisora. What better way is there to go out at the top, fighting for a world title? The likes of Tony Bellew, for example, went out the top, lost to Usyk, and went out at the top of the career. Not like Joe Joyce, for example. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think the best fight for
Man's out there firing shots at Joe.
No, we're going to speak about Joe Joyce in the next video. But shout out Joe Joyce, man. Just look out for your brain cells, bro. Honestly, but anyway, like I do think that probably I want to see Benavidez Smith. I think that's the best move. Look, it's a scary fight for Callum Smith, but then Callum Smith for Beterbiev. So
Yeah, I'd say the same thing as I mentioned off air. I think that's the fight that. I think that's the next fight in terms of who is next live, who is live in the division, who has put in an absolutely stellar performance in their last fight. I think Callum Smith has to be the next up for me, because beneath him, I don't know where else we're looking from that perspective, unless we're going to look at the likes of, unless we're going to be looking at getting. I'd love for my boy Josh Braxton to get in, but I don't think he's going to get in ahead of Callum Smith, and I think that wouldn't be right for Callum. Wouldn't be right if he did. In any case, so I say give it to Callum Smith. Yeah, I think it's a live opponent. I think it's a worthy opponent, a former world champion at super middleweight. So I think that's the one.
So I'm just looking at the light heavyweight WBC rankings, right? And Callum Smith is not even the top 10. At number 1, you got Beterbiev. Obviously, he's gonna fight Bivol, right? And then you got next Morel. So, do you think there's an argument that the WBC might put in the mandatory straight away, or do you think there's going to be a voluntary first? Because if it's a voluntary, you should go for Callum Smith.
I think it'll be a voluntary. I think WBC don't really fight and push for mandatories, historically. Obviously, in this instance, they really wanted to, because I think they're aware that they kind of did my man dirty from the super middleweight division. So I think that's the reason why they really pushed in this one. But typically, WBC don't really push forcefully when it comes to their mandatories. So I think, especially now that he's just been elevated to champion, I think he's going to be able to pick a fight, especially after what's happened to him.
Just now, yeah.
It would be wise for them to give him an ability to pick an opponent that he can earn some decent dough on, or you're going to have it where it's, who does Turkey want him to fight? You know what I'm saying? Depending on if the WBC and Turkey and my man are all getting on, because right now it's looking a bit tense over there.
That's what my question was. That's literally going to be my next question to you. Do you feel like Mauricio Suleiman kind of forced these mandatories upon all of these fights because of retaliation of Turkey's moves? Because there's an infamous video of Canelo trying to get the WBC, and Turkey's basically said no, like throw that over away, and then he took the Ring Magazine belt, and of course Turkey's basically, I suppose, disregarding the belt's status of integrity as well, right? So do you think like all of these mandatories from different belt organizations are kind of giving back to retaliation, saying, look, if you want to disrespect us as the belts, we're the governing authoritative bodies of boxing, we can make these fights long? Bro, your camera just went. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. I'm back in the game.
Did you hear a question?
Yeah, you say basically, is it a retaliation? Do I think it's a retaliation from the organizers or from the organizations to Turkey? It could be seen as that. It could be seen from that perspective, or it could also be seen as these are Turkey's favorite fighters. If if we put a mandatory in there, then we get to chop some. We get to eat a little bit here. So it could be seen on both ways. I think, like I said, I think the fullness of this conversation, I think we've got to take it to the next video, because I think there's a lot to break down with regards to Turkey, the future of boxing, the future of boxing in Saudi, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, guys, let us know what you think in the comments below about this trilogy, about this first fight. Are you with Joe fully on this? I think Joe might have convinced me to be on his side, but you know, I'm still thinking about Benavidez and the big fights that I want to see of him. I think he's in his prime now, and I want to see him be. You know, I guess I want to see him challenged. I want to see if he is actually the big fish, because he might be. And all now we haven't got to see him against the toughest opposition in both divisions. So let us know what you think in the comments below.
100%. And to be fair, a lot of people felt like Benavidez is ducking Bivol. So let us know in the comments. Do you think Bivol's ducking Benavidez? Do you think Bivol's ducking Benavidez? Do you want to see the trilogy? And just to quickly catch on your point, I want to see Benavidez fight the best. Is it time for Benavidez to try and force these fights in? It's not his fault. But guys, who wins out of the trilogy? Is it Artur Beterbiev or is it Dimitri Bivol? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And Dave, I'll give you the closing words, bro.
Listen, that's about it. We'll catch you again next time. I've been David Alorka.
I've been Jo Aujla.
The Square Circle, and we'll see you again next time.